The research station floated high above the purple clouds of the alien planet Xylaris. Its metal walls glimmered in the twin suns, and the corridors echoed with the hum of machines and the occasional beep of monitors. But in one small section of the station, a different kind of sound caught everyone's attention, the soft, pitiful whimper of a creature no one wanted to feed. Inside a containment dome, a baby dragon crouched on the floor. Its scales were a deep, shiny green, and its eyes glowed faintly like tiny lanterns. The hatchling shivered, wings folded tightly against its small body, claws tapping the metal floor nervously. It looked around the dome as if searching for anyone who would give it food. The aliens responsible for the station avoided it. They had tried feeding it once or twice, but the dragon had snapped at them, its tiny teeth sharp enough to draw blood. The hatchling's hunger was clear in every movement. Its stomach growled and it shifted from one claw to another, peering through the transparent walls. No one approached, afraid of the bite or the flames the dragon might unleash. The alien scientists muttered about the hatchling being too dangerous to feed and impossible to tame. It had been weeks since anyone had given it a proper meal, and the baby dragon's whimpers grew louder and more desperate with each passing day. In the corridor outside the dome, a young human engineer named Riven carried a tray of tools for maintenance work. He was small and wiry, with dark hair falling into his eyes and hands streaked with grease. Riven's job was simple: fix the station's malfunctioning air filters and power conduits. He was not supposed to interact with the dragons. In fact, the rules were clear: humans were not to enter the dragon containment areas and certainly not touch the hatchlings. But Riven had always been curious about the creatures. He had heard stories of the baby dragons, their vicious bites and their glowing eyes. As he passed the dome, a sudden noise caught his attention. The whimpering inside the containment dome had grown louder, more urgent. Riven paused, peering inside through the transparent wall. The small dragon looked straight at him, its glowing eyes wide and desperate. For a moment, it seemed as if the hatchling was trying to speak with its gaze, silently asking for help. The aliens monitoring the dome from a control panel noticed Riven's interest and shouted through the comms. "Do not approach. That hatchling is dangerous. Step away." But Riven did not move. Instead, he felt a strange pull in his chest, a mixture of pity, curiosity, and something he could not explain. The hatchling was not attacking. It was not hissing or spitting fire. It was only looking at him, hungry and small, and somehow, it felt harmless. Riven glanced at his own lunch, a small packet of nutrient bars he had saved from the station cafeteria. He had intended to eat it in the break room, but now it seemed like an opportunity. Carefully, he stepped closer to the dome, holding the packet so the hatchling could see it. The baby dragon's eyes widened even more, and it shuffled forward cautiously, claws clicking softly on the floor. The aliens inside the control room gasped. "It's coming closer," one said. "Do you see that? It's moving toward the human." Another muttered, "No human should be that brave, or that foolish." Riven knelt down on the floor outside the dome, placing the packet of food on the metal surface. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "Here, you can have some. I won't hurt you." The hatchling stopped, its small head tilting to one side. It sniffed the air and then slowly inched closer, its glowing eyes never leaving Riven. The creatures in the station were used to fear and aggression. Baby dragons were known to lash out, bite, or even breathe small flames when they were hungry. But this hatchling did not act aggressively. It crouched low, almost shyly, and stared at the human like it was asking permission. Riven realized it was not demanding food. It wanted to share a moment, not fight. Carefully, Riven opened the packet and broke it into tiny pieces. He held one piece out with a steady hand. The hatchling sniffed it, then nibbled cautiously. Its tiny teeth grazed the food, and its glowing eyes seemed to soften. Riven smiled. "See? You don't have to be afraid," he whispered. The dragon made a small sound, almost like a purr, and ate another piece. The aliens watching through the panels froze in disbelief. No one had ever been able to feed this hatchling without fear. They had tried machines, telepaths, and even magic from other worlds, but nothing had worked. And yet, here was a human child, sitting calmly on the floor, and the dragon was eating willingly, not with aggression, but with trust. Riven continued to break small pieces of the food, placing them near the hatchling. Slowly, the baby dragon moved closer, nibbling carefully from his hand. Its small tail flicked nervously, but it did not snap or hiss. The aliens whispered among themselves. It's bonding with him. Impossible, no one else has ever earned that trust." After a few moments, Riven laughed softly. "You must be starving," he said. I've never seen anyone so polite about eating. The hatchling blinked at him, then leaned its tiny head closer, tapping his hand with a claw. The gesture was simple, almost childlike, but it carried meaning. It was as if the baby dragon was saying, "Can I eat with you?" Riven's heart melted. "Of course," he whispered. He sat cross-legged on the floor, holding pieces of the food in his hands. The hatchling curled up beside him, eating slowly and watching him with bright eyes. Every bite seemed to strengthen a new connection between them, one built not on fear or power but on trust and care. The baby dragon's hunger was gradually satisfied, but the bond had just begun. Riven realized that this small, trembling creature had chosen him. Not because he was strong or brave in the usual sense, but because he had shown patience, calm, and kindness when no one else would. The dragon was lonely, scared, and hungry, and Riven had met it with nothing but understanding. As the last pieces of food disappeared, the hatchling nuzzled Riven's hand, leaving a faint trail of warm, glowing scales on his skin. Riven laughed softly, stroking its tiny head. "Don't worry. I'll help you. You're not alone anymore." The dragon rumbled happily, a soft vibration that ran through the metal floor. Outside the dome, the aliens watched silently. They had never seen anything like this. A human had not only fed the hatchling, but he had earned its trust. The baby dragon had chosen him as a friend. In that moment, a simple act, a shared meal, had melted fear and changed everything. Riven looked down at the small dragon, smiling. "We'll take it slow," he whispered. "But someday you'll see the galaxy with me." The hatchling blinked, its eyes glowing brighter as if understanding every word. And in that quiet, glowing dome high above Xylaris, a bond was born. One that would soon change not only the dragon's life but the humans and perhaps the galaxy itself. The baby dragon, once starving and alone, had found a friend. And Riven, the human stable boy of the station, had discovered something incredible. Sometimes the smallest gestures, like sharing a meal, could forge connections stronger than fear, stronger than legends, stronger than any rules. The adventure had just begun. The containment dome was quiet now, filled only with the soft sounds of chewing and the occasional shuffle of tiny claws against the metal floor. Pebble, as Riven had named the baby dragon, finished the last piece of food and looked up at the human with wide, shining eyes. The glow in those eyes seemed almost like a question, almost like the hatchling wanted to say something, but it could not speak in words humans understood. Riven wiped his hands on his trousers and leaned closer. "Are you still hungry?" he asked softly. Pebble tilted its small head, and the glowing eyes flickered brighter. Then, in a way that surprised Riven, the hatchling shuffled a few steps closer, lowering its tiny head to the floor and tapping his boot gently with a claw. It was a simple gesture, but it carried meaning. Riven blinked. The hatchling was not just asking for food. Its gesture seemed polite, almost shy, like it was asking permission. It was as if Pebble were saying, "Can I eat with you?" The idea made Riven's chest tighten with warmth. He had expected hunger, maybe aggression, but not this. The baby dragon was asking for company, not just a meal. Riven knelt carefully beside the hatchling. "Of course," he whispered, his voice steady even though his heart was racing. He opened another packet of food and broke it into small pieces, holding them out in his hand. Pebble sniffed the air and then slowly nibbled one piece from Riven's palm. It was gentle, careful, and the trust in the gesture made Riven smile. Outside the dome, the aliens watching through the observation panels were stunned. No human had ever earned the trust of a baby dragon like this. Many of them had tried feeding it themselves, using tools, telepathic commands, even feeding machines. Every attempt had failed. The dragon had always snapped, hissed, or spat fire. And yet, here was a human, sitting calmly, sharing his food, and the hatchling was eating peacefully. Pebble moved closer, curling its small body around Riven's legs as he sat cross-legged on the floor. Its glowing eyes remained fixed on him, and it nudged his hand with its snout as he offered more food. Riven laughed softly. "You're very polite," he said. "Most creatures just grab the food. But you wait and you ask." Pebble made a soft rumble, almost like a purr, and nibbled another piece from his hand. For the first time, Riven noticed something else about Pebble. Its scales, which had seemed a dull green before, now shimmered slightly as it ate. The glow in its eyes pulsed gently, like it was responding to the act of being treated kindly. Riven realized that the hatchling was not only hungry for food, but hungry for trust, for attention, for connection. He leaned forward a little and whispered, "You've been alone too long, haven't you?" Pebble responded with a small shuffle, moving its head closer to Riven's hand. The baby dragon's gesture was simple, but the meaning was clear. It wanted company. It wanted friendship. It wanted to be understood. Riven broke the remaining food into tiny pieces and placed them in a small line on the floor. "You can eat with me," he said. "Not just beside me, with me." Pebble tilted its head, then slowly lowered itself beside him, eating piece by piece. Every movement was careful, deliberate, as if it had never eaten with anyone before. Riven realized that this was more than feeding. It was sharing, a sign that Pebble trusted him. The aliens outside whispered among themselves. It's cooperating," one said in disbelief. "A baby dragon, choosing to eat with a human. Impossible." Another shook their head. "No one has ever seen this before. It's unprecedented." Riven continued to feed Pebble, speaking softly all the while. "See? You don't have to be afraid. I'm not going anywhere. You're safe here." The hatchling paused in its chewing and lifted its head, looking directly into Riven's eyes. The glow in its pupils seemed warmer, softer, as if it understood. Riven's smile grew. He had never expected a dragon to communicate so clearly without words, but the gestures, the nudges, the soft rumbles, they all spoke volumes. Pebble finished the last crumbs of food and nudged Riven's hand again, softly this time. Riven laughed, a light, happy sound. "You're not just hungry, are you?" he said. "You wanted someone to share with, someone who would care." The baby dragon rumbled in response, curling a little closer as Riven gently stroked the small scales along its neck. The hatchling's eyes flickered again, glowing brighter as it leaned against Riven. It was no longer just a creature in a containment dome. It was a friend. A companion. A being that had chosen him because of kindness, because of patience, because he had treated it like something more than a dangerous experiment. Outside, the observation panels buzzed with quiet astonishment. Some aliens were still skeptical, but others looked at Riven and Pebble with a mixture of awe and admiration. One elder scientist muttered, This is history. A human has earned the trust of a baby dragon." Riven continued to speak softly, telling Pebble about the station, about the work he did, and even about the strange alien planets he had visited in his imagination. The baby dragon listened, sometimes tilting its head, sometimes nudging his hand, and sometimes letting out a soft rumble. Each small gesture reinforced the bond that had begun with a simple act, sharing food. Hours passed, though it felt like only minutes. Pebble stayed close to Riven, exploring his hands and arms carefully, letting the human guide its movements. When the hatchling curled up and rested its tiny head on Riven's lap, he felt an unexpected warmth in his chest. He had not only fed a dragon, but he had melted its fear, its loneliness, and its hesitation. Finally, Riven stood up slowly, helping Pebble to its feet. "You're stronger than you look," he said softly. "And you're brave too. Don't forget that." Pebble's glowing eyes followed him, and it let out a soft, happy rumble. For the first time it seemed truly content. As Riven left the dome, the hatchling watched him go, but it did not whimper or try to escape. Its small body curled up in the corner, but its eyes remained bright, waiting. The connection had been made. The trust had been given. And the unexpected request, the simple, silent plea to share a meal, had begun a friendship that neither human nor dragon would forget. That day in the small dome on Xylaris, a baby dragon had asked a human to eat with him. And the human had said yes. The simple act had changed everything. Pebble had found a friend, and Riven had found something far greater than he had imagined, the beginning of an extraordinary partnership that would soon touch the galaxy. From that day forward, the hatchling was no longer alone. And Riven realized something important. Sometimes the smallest gestures, the quietest requests, and the simplest acts of kindness could melt the hardest hearts, even those of a hungry baby dragon. Pebble, the baby dragon, had changed since the day Riven shared his lunch with him. No longer trembling or fearful, the small dragon now followed the young human wherever he went in the station. It was unusual, unheard of even. Dragons, even hatchlings, were normally fierce and independent. They did not attach themselves to humans. But Pebble had chosen Riven, and the connection was clear to anyone who watched. The first morning after their shared meal, Riven left his quarters carrying a toolbox for a routine maintenance check in the power conduits. To his surprise, Pebble was waiting outside, crouched by the door. Its glowing eyes lit up as soon as it saw him, and it let out a soft, playful rumble. "I didn't think you'd come," Riven whispered, crouching down to stroke the dragon's head. Pebble leaned into the touch, nuzzling his hand. Riven shook his head with a laugh. "You're not supposed to follow me around the station," he said. Pebble blinked, then hopped onto his shoulder, balancing carefully with its small claws. The dragon's wings were still too small for flight, but it flapped them excitedly as if to say, "I'm coming too." Throughout the day, the hatchling trailed Riven from corridor to corridor. When Riven climbed a maintenance ladder, Pebble climbed too, its claws clicking softly against the metal. When he crawled under a large vent to check for a short circuit, Pebble squeezed behind him, tilting its head to look at the wires. Riven had to laugh. "You really want to be everywhere I go, don't you?" Pebble's tiny roar sounded almost like a laugh in reply. The aliens observing this unusual behavior were baffled. "It's following him willingly," one muttered, pushing their glasses up their nose. "No dragon has ever bonded with a human like this." Another whispered, "It's more than trust, it's loyalty. It's choosing him over its own kind." As the day went on, Riven discovered that Pebble was not just following him passively. The dragon had a sense of caution and intelligence far beyond what a hatchling should have. When sparks flew from a malfunctioning panel, Pebble jumped in front of Riven, spreading its tiny wings to shield him. The sparks bounced harmlessly off Pebble's glowing scales, and the hatchling rumbled, protective and alert. Riven stared in amazement. You're protecting me?" he whispered. Pebble let out a soft hiss, the kind that meant yes. After the incident, Riven sat on a bench to catch his breath. Pebble hopped down from his shoulder and curled up beside him, resting its head on his lap. "I guess we make a good team," Riven said quietly. The dragon's eyes glimmered, and it let out a soft, satisfied rumble. From that moment, Riven understood that this was more than friendship. Pebble had chosen him as a companion, and the bond was mutual. Over the next few days, the baby dragon's following became even more noticeable. When Riven went to the cafeteria, Pebble waited by the entrance, pacing slightly and letting out little whimpers until he returned. When he repaired broken lights in the corridors, Pebble sat at the edge of the work zone, watching carefully and occasionally helping by nudging small objects toward him with its snout. Every action seemed intentional, almost as if Pebble understood the humans' tasks and wanted to participate. The human staff and aliens alike began to notice the unusual partnership. Some were skeptical. "It's dangerous," they said. "Dragons are unpredictable." Others were fascinated. "He's training it," one commented. "No, it's bonding with him. That's something new." Riven didn't care about the whispers. He only noticed Pebble's trust and companionship. Every day the bond grew stronger. One afternoon, a sudden alarm rang through the station. One of the oxygen filters had malfunctioned, and a cloud of toxic gas started leaking into the hallway. Humans and aliens scrambled, panicking at the potential danger. Riven knew he had to fix the filter quickly. He grabbed his toolkit and ran toward the hazard. Pebble was at his side instantly, eyes glowing brighter than ever. The dragon flapped its tiny wings to keep pace with him and let out protective rumbles as sparks flew from the damaged machine. When Riven reached the filter, he saw that a large panel had shifted, blocking access to the controls. Pebble nudged the panel with its small snout, pushing it enough for Riven to reach the controls. The hatchling's assistance saved precious seconds, allowing him to repair the leak before anyone was hurt. Afterward, Riven knelt and stroked Pebble's head. "You really do follow me everywhere," he said softly. Pebble blinked, lifted its small head and nuzzled his hand in reply. The station staff had gathered nearby, watching in awe. "It's incredible," one whispered. "No hatchling has ever done that for a human before. More than instinct. It's loyalty." That night, as Riven returned to his quarters, Pebble followed him silently, curling up outside the door. He opened it and invited the dragon in. "You're welcome to stay," he said. Pebble climbed inside carefully and settled on a small blanket Riven had laid out. The hatchling's eyes glimmered softly as it closed them, trusting the human entirely. Riven realized that Pebble's following wasn't just about food or safety. The dragon wanted companionship, guidance, and a sense of belonging. It had been alone, scared, and hungry, but now it had someone who cared for it. And in return, Pebble offered something unexpected: loyalty, protection, and unwavering trust. Over the next few weeks, the dragon's presence became a normal part of Riven's life. Pebble would follow him to maintenance rooms, labs, and even observation decks, sitting quietly while Riven worked. When Riven laughed or spoke softly, Pebble responded with little rumbles and playful nudges. The dragon's behavior fascinated the aliens. Some took notes, studying the unprecedented bond. Others whispered about the possible implications. A human and a dragon working together as equals, something that had never happened in recorded history. One day, Riven found himself in the hangar bay, inspecting a transport shuttle. Pebble sat nearby, watching the machines with curious, glowing eyes. Suddenly, a small fire sparked from a faulty fuel line. Riven froze, knowing the danger, but Pebble leapt into action. It batted the small flames aside with its tail, letting out a low roar that startled everyone nearby. Riven quickly shut down the fuel flow and extinguished the rest of the fire. Pebble had acted without hesitation, protecting him once again. Riven laughed, lifting Pebble into his arms. "I don't know what I'd do without you," he said. Pebble rumbled, curling into his chest as if agreeing. The partnership was no longer just emotional, it was practical. Together they were stronger, braver, and unstoppable in ways the station had never imagined. As the sun set over Xylaris, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, Riven and Pebble sat on the observation deck. The hatchling curled beside him, tiny wings folded, glowing eyes soft and content. "You really do follow me everywhere," Riven said again, smiling. "I guess we're partners now. Not just friends." Pebble rumbled softly in agreement, the vibration warming Riven's hand. That night, the human and the dragon slept side by side, a bond forged in trust, shared meals, and the quiet courage to care for one another. Pebble had chosen to follow Riven, not out of fear or hunger but out of loyalty. And Riven had accepted that loyalty, realizing that sometimes the smallest acts, like sharing a meal, could grow into the strongest partnerships. From that day forward, wherever Riven went in the station, Pebble was there. Watching, protecting, learning. And slowly the rest of the station began to accept the unbelievable. A human and a dragon working together, trusting each other and changing what everyone thought was possible. Riven smiled at the hatchling. "We'll face everything together," he whispered. Pebble blinked, eyes glowing softly, and leaned against him. The dragon that had once been scared, alone, and hungry now followed the human everywhere, and the bond they shared promised adventures neither of them could have imagined. The galaxy had yet to see the power of their friendship. And so, the dragon that followed him everywhere became more than a companion. It became a partner, a protector, and a symbol of something new, a human and a dragon side by side ready to face the universe together. Riven had begun to think of Pebble as more than a baby dragon. Each day their bond grew stronger. Pebble followed him everywhere, trusted him without fear, and even helped him with small tasks around the station. But one evening as the twin suns of Xylaris dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and violet, Riven noticed something unusual. Pebble's glowing eyes flickered oddly, and his movements seemed slower, almost hesitant. Curious, Riven knelt beside the hatchling and gently touched his glowing scales. "Are you feeling all right?" he asked softly. Pebble let out a low rumble and leaned against him as if trying to communicate something. It wasn't just hunger this time. There was something deeper. Something the station's scientists had never understood. The next day, Riven went to the observation panels where the alien biologists monitored Pebble. They were whispering among themselves, clearly concerned. "There's something unusual about the hatchling," one said. "Its metabolism isn't like ordinary dragons. Even when fed regularly, it shows signs of weakness if not bonded with a human." Riven frowned. "Bonded with a human?" he repeated. "What does that mean?" The elder biologist adjusted her glasses. "This hatchling is different. Its lineage is rare. Pebble carries ancient royal dragon DNA. Normally, such dragons do not survive without forming a connection with someone they choose, a human or a being of pure intent. Without that bond, they refuse to eat and their energy fades over time. That is why Pebble was so desperate when you first fed him." Riven's eyes widened. "So, it wasn't just hunger?" The biologist shook her head. "No. The hatchling was waiting. Waiting for someone it could trust and choose. That bond is instinctual. The dragon cannot eat fully or thrive without it. Your kindness, your calm presence, and your willingness to share food allowed Pebble to form that bond. That is why he ate from your hand and followed you everywhere." Riven sat down on a nearby bench trying to process this. Pebble, the small dragon who had seemed so ordinary and hungry, was actually part of an ancient royal line. And he, a human stable boy of the station, had somehow fulfilled the dragon's instinctive need. He had been chosen without realizing it. Pebble, sensing Riven's thoughts, nuzzled his hand. The hatchling's glowing eyes reflected trust and affection. Riven realized that Pebble's bond with him was not just emotional, it was survival. Without him, the baby dragon might have continued to weaken, its hunger never fully satisfied. Over the next few days the biologists conducted tests. They discovered that Pebble's scales glowed brighter whenever Riven was near. The hatchling's energy levels rose when he interacted with the human, and even its playful behavior increased. The results were clear. The bond between Riven and Pebble was more than friendship. It was life itself for the dragon. Riven thought back to the first meal he had shared with Pebble. At the time, he had simply acted out of kindness, giving part of his lunch to a hungry creature. He had never imagined that such a small gesture could have such profound consequences. The baby dragon had chosen him, and in return, Riven had given it the bond it needed to survive. That evening, Riven sat with Pebble in the observation dome, speaking softly as he stroked the hatchling's glowing scales. "So that's why you were so hungry," he whispered. "Not just for food, but for someone to care for you. Someone to trust. Someone who would understand you." Pebble responded with a low rumble, leaning closer to him as if agreeing. Riven smiled. "I didn't know it was that important," he admitted. "I just wanted to help you." Pebble blinked slowly, nuzzling his hand. It was clear the dragon understood in its own way that Riven's actions had saved him. Word of the discovery spread through the station. Scientists, engineers, and even high-ranking alien officials came to observe the hatchling. Everyone was amazed. No human had ever formed such a bond with a dragon before, especially not one of royal lineage. Pebble was not just a hatchling anymore. He was a symbol of what was possible when trust and kindness were shown, even across species. Riven realized that this bond came with responsibility. Pebble depended on him not just for food but for companionship, safety, and guidance. The small dragon had chosen him as a companion, and it was up to Riven to honor that choice. He spent the following days learning more about Pebble's behavior, studying his movements, and observing how he reacted to different stimuli. Every interaction strengthened their connection, and Riven grew more confident in understanding the hatchling's needs. One morning, Riven watched Pebble play with a small piece of equipment in the maintenance bay. The dragon was lively, curious, and alert. Its wings flapped in excitement, and its glowing eyes sparkled with joy. Riven knelt beside him. "You're not just surviving anymore," he said softly. "You're thriving. And it's because we found each other." Pebble let out a happy, soft roar, nuzzling his hand once more. Later that day, the elder biologist approached Riven. "You've done something remarkable," she said. "Most humans would never be able to form such a connection. You've awakened something in Pebble that no machine, no spell, and no alien protocol could ever achieve." Riven shrugged, a small smile on his face. "I just shared my lunch," he said. "I didn't know it would matter this much." The biologist shook her head, still in awe. "It matters more than you realize. This hatchling's survival, his growth, and even his future depend on this bond. You've changed his life, and he's already changed yours." That night, Riven and Pebble sat on the observation deck, watching the twin moons rise over the horizon. Pebble curled up beside him, small wings folded and glowing softly in the dim light. Riven stroked the scales along the dragon's neck, feeling the warmth and life pulsing beneath his fingers. "I promise I'll take care of you," he whispered. "I won't let anything happen to you. You're not alone anymore." Pebble rumbled in response, leaning against him, trusting him completely. Riven realized something important. Pebble's hunger had never been only for food. It had been hunger for trust, for companionship, and for connection. The baby dragon had waited instinctively for someone worthy of that trust. And Riven, without even knowing it at first, had been chosen. From that day forward, Riven understood that every action, every gentle gesture, and every moment of patience mattered. Pebble's survival depended on more than feeding him. It depended on care, understanding, and loyalty. The hatchling's hunger was a secret, hidden behind glowing eyes and small whimpers, but it was no longer a mystery. Riven looked at Pebble as the dragon's eyes glimmered softly. "We're in this together," he whispered. Pebble rumbled happily, leaning closer. The small dragon, once starving and alone, had found his human. And the human had discovered a friend, a partner, and a responsibility unlike any he had ever imagined. The bond between Riven and Pebble was no longer simple companionship. It was survival, trust, and destiny intertwined. The hatchling's hunger had a reason, and now that reason had revealed itself. Pebble needed him, and Riven had chosen to be there. And in that quiet moment, as the station hummed softly around them and the moons reflected in Pebble's glowing eyes, Riven knew that the bond they shared would not only keep the hatchling alive, it would shape their future, and perhaps the future of the entire galaxy. The baby dragon's hunger had finally found its answer, and the human stable boy had become more than a friend. He had become the reason Pebble would thrive, grow, and one day perhaps soar across the stars. The days passed quickly on the station above Xylaris, and Pebble grew stronger with each one. His small wings flapped with more power, his glowing eyes shone brighter, and his playful roars echoed through the corridors. But more importantly, the bond between him and Riven deepened. The baby dragon no longer followed Riven out of fear or hunger. He followed him out of trust, loyalty, and friendship. Wherever Riven went, Pebble was there, watching, learning, and sometimes even helping. One morning, Riven arrived at the maintenance bay, carrying a set of tools for a large repair on one of the station's engines. Pebble was already waiting, crouched at the edge of the bay, eyes glowing with excitement. As Riven opened the panel and began examining the wiring, Pebble crawled closer and nudged a loose piece of equipment with its snout, carefully pushing it toward him. Riven laughed softly. "You really are trying to help, aren't you?" he said. Pebble gave a small playful roar as if agreeing. As they worked together, aliens from other parts of the station watched from a distance. At first, they had been skeptical, worried about a human and a dragon working so closely. But now they saw something remarkable. Pebble was not just following Riven, he was cooperating, responding to gestures, and even protecting the human when sparks flew from the machinery. The station staff began to see what Riven already knew. The bond between human and dragon was extraordinary. After the repair was finished, Riven patted Pebble on the head. "We make a good team," he said. Pebble rumbled happily, curling up at Riven's feet. The small dragon's trust was complete, and the partnership between them was undeniable. This bond was more than friendship, it was family. News of the human and the dragon's partnership spread quickly through the station and even reached other planets. Scientists, engineers, and explorers were amazed. No human had ever formed such a connection with a dragon, let alone one of royal lineage. Pebble had survived and thrived because of Riven's care, patience, and kindness, and in return he had become a loyal companion, a protector, and a friend. Together they were proof that humans could achieve what no other species could, earning a dragon's trust. One evening, the station received a message from a nearby planet. A cargo ship had been damaged in orbit, and the station was the closest safe place for emergency docking. Riven and Pebble were assigned to assist. As they approached the hangar, Riven noticed that Pebble's small wings fluttered in excitement. He chuckled. "Ready for another adventure, huh?" Pebble gave a soft roar, circling around him before landing beside his feet. When they reached the damaged ship, sparks flew from broken panels, and the smell of smoke filled the air. Riven carefully maneuvered around the machinery, trying to shut down the faulty systems. Pebble, sensing danger, moved forward, flaring his small wings and letting out protective rumbles. When a spark flew too close, Pebble batted it away with his tail, keeping Riven safe. The human and the dragon worked seamlessly together, their trust and understanding guiding every movement. After the ship was stabilized, Riven knelt beside Pebble. "We did it," he said. Pebble blinked and nudged his hand, a soft rumble escaping his throat. For Riven, that gesture meant more than words could express. They had faced danger together, and Pebble had protected him without hesitation. The bond between them was now unbreakable. Back at the station, life returned to its normal rhythm. Pebble grew quickly, no longer a tiny hatchling but a young dragon, still small enough to follow Riven through corridors but strong and confident. The aliens who had once feared him now watched with awe. Some even approached cautiously, bringing gifts and studying the dragon to understand him better. Pebble accepted their presence, but he never strayed far from Riven's side. One night, Riven sat on the observation deck, watching the twin moons rise over Xylaris. Pebble curled up beside him, small wings folded, glowing eyes reflecting the soft light. Riven stroked his scales gently. "You know," he whispered, "we've come a long way. From the first meal we shared to this. This is incredible." Pebble let out a soft rumble, leaning closer. He was not just a dragon. He was family. The station's commander approached, looking at the human and the dragon with admiration. "I've never seen anything like this," he said. "A human and a dragon working together as equals. You've set an example for the entire galaxy." Riven smiled. "I didn't do it for fame or recognition," he said. "I just wanted to help a hungry little dragon." Pebble nudged his hand in agreement, eyes glowing warmly. As time passed, Riven and Pebble became inseparable. The dragon learned to respond to commands, communicate simple emotions, and even assist with light repairs around the station. They laughed together, explored together, and faced small dangers together. Their partnership was natural, effortless, and inspiring. One morning, Riven received a transmission from an alien world far beyond the station's orbit. They had heard of the human and dragon duo and wanted to study their bond. Riven looked down at Pebble, who was watching him intently, glowing eyes shining with curiosity. "Looks like the galaxy wants to see us," he said softly. Pebble let out a playful roar, circling around him. Together, they would travel beyond the station and show what humans and dragons could achieve when trust and friendship guided them. Before they left, Riven packed carefully, making sure Pebble had a comfortable area to sit during the journey. The hatchling, now grown into a young dragon, followed him obediently, flapping its wings excitedly as the ship prepared to depart. As the engines powered up and the station receded into the distance, Riven placed a hand on Pebble's head. "Ready for the next adventure?" he asked. Pebble gave a soft roar in reply, leaning against him. Their journey would not be easy. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers and uncharted worlds. But Riven knew one thing: with Pebble by his side he could face anything. The baby dragon that had once been hungry, alone, and scared had become a loyal companion, a protector and a friend. And together they would explore the stars, facing challenges, forging new alliances, and showing the universe the power of trust and companionship between species. As they traveled, Riven reflected on how it all began. A small, simple gesture of sharing a meal. That act had built a bridge between human and dragon, one that no force in the galaxy could break. Pebble's hunger had revealed a hidden reason. He needed connection, trust, and care. And Riven had provided it without hesitation, creating a bond that would last a lifetime. At night, as the ship glided silently through space, Riven and Pebble rested side by side. Pebble curled up at his feet, tail wrapped around his legs, wings folded neatly. Riven stroked his glowing scales, feeling the warmth of life and trust. "We're a team," he whispered. Pebble rumbled softly, nuzzling him in reply. And in that moment, the first human-dragon family in the galaxy existed. A stable boy and a dragon hatchling, once strangers, now partners, companions, and family. Their bond was more than survival, it was love, loyalty, and trust. Together, they would face the universe, explore new worlds, and show the galaxy that humans and dragons, when united by care and friendship, could achieve the impossible. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of adventure, challenge, and discovery. But Riven and Pebble were ready. Side by side, they looked out at the endless galaxy, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. And for the first time, the galaxy saw something truly extraordinary. A human and a dragon united not by fear or power but by love, trust, and the unbreakable bond of family.